Hello, beautifuls. I am here to do commentary for my blogs. I have to go back and see which ones I did not do commentary for and then come back and do them. Um, this one is going to be the commentary for single mothers do not date. And I've been having a lot of trouble with coming with this commentary because I wrote the blog and I just wrote it from my spirit, from my soul, really, and just said, a short, uh, advice, on why you should not date if you're a single mom in Blackistan, right? And this is, of course, to black women who are trying to crone or trying to live at their best or trying to be sovereign, and are not all the way there. This is an advice to those women. And some women have had children already because now my advice my advice of course is not to have children. If you don't have children, there is no reason to have children. I also wrote a blog. My blog is oceanofdaughters.com, and it was titled having a baby in Blackistan is a living death, and I do believe that. I will do commentary on that blog another day, but today this is for my single mothers that listen to my commentary and read my blog. I had trouble with this topic because um, as I write, I realize some of the healing that I need to do, and I take time to do that, right? Um, but this right here was a major blow. This blog was a major blow to me because I thought I was just writing it as a mother warning black women um, on how to save your children, really. And I read it and I wrote it as thinking I was a woman who escaped um, sexual trauma as a child, and then I had to rethink and you know reconsider what I thought sexual trauma was. And I had to come to the conclusion that me myself I did suffer from some um, some some predatory sexual acts from grown men. Of course, you guys, my blog. I'm at my last video about me and grown men when I was a 14-year-old girl, but I had to, I'm telling you, up until this moment, not up until this moment, but up until I decided to do the work and do the healing, I did not even think for a second that I was, harmed in that kind of way, and not I would be counted technically in the 60%, right? Or in the 65% of black girls who are sexually assaulted before the age of 18, right? So I had trouble counting myself in that number. I thought that I would be excluded. And looking back on it, no, that was a sexual abuse and it was a sexual trauma. And it's something that I have to deal with and something I have to heal from, right? So anyway, in coming to do the commentary for this blog, I, got hit in the gut with that, right? I had to deal with it. And now, I'm able to talk about it. So anyway, single black mothers, do not date. You will do your children a great disservice in dating. Um, a lot of the things that I chose to do in rearing my daughter, I did it, a lot of it from my subconscious mind, right? I wasn't really consciously making these decisions knowing why I was making them, but my subconscious mind was making them, right? And one of the things that I decided was not to date. First of all, I thought I was not dating because I was told that black women who had children early, I really thought that we didn't deserve to date, right? I thought that we didn't deserve to have uh men want us outside of, as you know, the degenerates over there saying, other than to be pumped and dumped, right? So I'd already had this thought in my mind that that was what I got, right? As I said, I got pregnant at 14 and I punished myself severely for it. Um, I punished myself severely for it. And and accepting that degenerate thought was one of the ways that I punished myself, right? So I did not do much dating. Not that I did not men, see men or experience men. I mean, like bring them into my home, introducing them to my daughter, having them around her. None of that shit happened for me, and I think that was a great service to my daughter. And I remember saying to one of my friends, and another reason why I didn't come and say this was because I know this is a very tough advice for black women to take. Do not date. Do not date and raise your children instead. You had them. You did not go to the chop shop when you could have. You had them, and now you must raise them. Yeah, that's how it goes. You could have got rid of them. Like you don't have to have children. You chose to have children. You chose to, as my mother would say, you was grown, or you made a grown up decision and you decided to have those children. Now you must raise them, or you can take them to fucking and let them be adopted by someone else, but you didn't. So now you must deal with the consequence of getting pregnant, and now you must put mothering first. And in putting mothering first, you do not get the luxury of dating in Blackistan, because the males, again, they don't deserve you. They're going to be harsh, and they're going to be cruel, and they're going to be mean, and they are going to mistreat you, and your children are going to watch, and your children are going to hate you for it, especially those beloved sons that you guys love so much, right? But not especially those sons, like the sons are special to me. I'm just saying, you guys really, black women love their sons, and I'm he'll let you know, if you date, them sons are going to hate you for it. Those sons are going to hate you for it. And in their innocence, let's just give little black boys the benefit of a doubt here. As I said, it's some rougher channels around here that ain't gonna do it, and I completely agree with those women, right? But we're gonna give little black boys the benefit of a doubt, and we're gonna say, you know what, he came from a goddess, and that means that he has some kind of link to a higher consciousness, right? And his innocence. And in his innocence, he still loves you, right? He hasn't begun to hate you yet, right? That demon ain't begin to set in him. That demon don't set in until about 11, 12 years old, and then I know, right? So that demon ain't set into him yet. So in his little age, and he watching you get your ass whipped, he's watching you get dogged, that aids in the fucking resentment, mind you. He's watching you get treated bad. He's hearing you weep and cry all night long, and he's becoming very angry. He's gaining a resentment for you, because in his little innocence and his little innocence where he still has a little bit of connection to the divine, right? Before that wickedness sets in and wipes it out of him, he knows that you deserve better. He knows that you deserve better, and he is angry and resentful toward you because you did not choose better, right? As they say, right? Because then he grows up and he says it. He says that you did not choose better. So, what your choice of choosing better should have been was to not date at all. To not date at all. If his father walked out on him, he don't get no father. Okay? If his father walked out on him, he does not get one. You should not date. But and that's my spiel on the sons and why how they feel. But I'm going to tell you realistically what happens in Blackistan. And realistically, what happens in Blackistan is that 65% of black girls are sexually assaulted before the age of 18. And I always knew about the sexual degeneracy in black males. I always knew it was there. And I think that I know it was there because, as I mentioned, and Aunt Mammy, she was molested by my grandfather, and I often wonder what was the odds of that grandfather not also molesting my mother, right? And if that trauma was inflicted on my mother, then of course it trickles down. And if my mother did not heal it, right? If my mother did not do the work necessary to heal it, then it of course trickles down to me. And I always knew that sexual degeneracy and black males existed. Like I always knew, and I know that the sexual degeneracy. And I told you guys I'm moving on to Miss Andrew, right? And I'm not asexual. I do like men, and I do like to date men, and I am about very straight. I'm a very straight leaning woman. Okay, I'm a very heterosexual leaning woman, right? So even though I may say misandrous things, I want you guys to know that like, I do date men. I'm not a complete male hater, but sexual degeneracy in males exists everywhere, right? We're gonna go on and throw it in there, so nobody got to say it in the comments. Yes, white males, Asian males, they all have some kind of sexual degeneracy, but no one is taking a cake like black males. No one is taking a cake in sexual degeneracy like black males. And if you're going to date them with your small children, whether it be female or male, you are opening the doors for your child or your children to be harmed in a very, very sick and nasty and demonic way. And it will take it takes forever. It takes a lifetime to heal from that. And it's not worth it. It's not worth it. If you are deciding to keep those babies and you're going to have them and you're not going to go to the chop shop like the other women over on other channels are advising black women to do, well, my advice is to not sleep with them. That's my first advice. But if you sleep with them and you end up in a fucked up situation and you don't get your ass over to the chop shop, then once you have them, don't date. If you got small children right now, don't date. 65% of black girls are reporting being sexually assaulted before the age of 18. My aunt did not report her father sexually molesting her from a very, very young age. It's not been reported, so she's not counted. If he was as sick as I am sure he was, my mother's molestation was not counted. And I'm gonna say about 20% of that kind of sickness in Blackistan is not reported. So we talking 65%. I'm gonna say it's at least 80. I'm gonna say at least 80% of black women have been sexually assaulted by a black male before the age of 18. And with that being said, knowing that as a mother, even in my subconscious mind, I had to do what was best for my daughter. I was not, in that sense, no one in my family sexually assaulted me in that way because my father was in and out. My father, he was very abusive to my mother, physically abusive to my mother. But he was not physically abusive towards me, and he also was not sexually abusive towards me. And his presence in a dysfunctional patriarchy, which is Blackistan's patriarchy, his presence, I think, saved me. My father and my uncles are violent, right? Not just violent to women and children, but they are violent males. They are the Pookie and the Ray Rays, right? And I think that I had my aunt pick me. She married a child molester into the family, and he sexually assaulted my cousin, my favorite cousin. But he didn't, and me and her was together all the time. But he did not sexually assault me, and I know that he did not do that to me because my father was present. Odds are, if I would have went home and told my father, he would have had a problem. And that's and by no means am I hyping my father up, but if someone violated me in that way as a small child, my father and my uncles would have not been very kind in dealing with that kind of abuse towards me. That kind of abuse towards me. So the uncle that was married into the family, he knew better than to harm me in that way. And that is what you guys and that's what you're and not only that, when I asked my father after I got grown, I said, why didn't you just leave mommy alone? Like, why did you make her life a living hell? Like, you didn't want her. You wanted to dog her. You wanted to beat her up. She didn't want you to beat her up, so she would leave. Like, why did you chase her down? Why did you follow her every fucking where? Why did you, why didn't you just leave her alone? And one of his reasons, he had several reasons, but one of his reasons was because he was abused as a child by his stepfather, and he knew that if he left us alone with another male, that was a possibility. That is how conscious of black males are about this. They know what happens if they leave their children. They know the possibility of things that can happen when they leave their children, and they still leave them. And once my father did leave, he still came and ran every man away. Like, he didn't let my mother live her life at all. She was, if he found out that it was a man around, he would. Now listen, knowing what I know now, right? All of them ain't shit. But I got very angry at him for doing that, because I felt like he was stealing my mother's happiness, our whole lives. Like he was stealing her happiness. He wouldn't let her be happy and move on and be with another man. And when black males leave their children, right, you are leaving the door open they are leaving a door open for someone to come in and harm their children. And I think that they know that, and they don't give a fuck. I think that they know that, and they don't give a fuck. My father had several reasons for coming back to abuse my mother, and it's no justification for that. But he knew that if he allowed men to come around me and my brother, that it was a possibility that we could have been abused like him. And even though that was not, even though it was a better way to deal with that as a man, right? Because he really could have stayed with my mother and not abused her. He really could have stayed with her and not abused her. He could have stayed with her and loved her and been the man that she needed him to be and not abused her. But he didn't. But I think that I have to also, in one hand, I can hate him for my mother, and on the other hand, I can be grateful for him for my childhood, and for him not allowing someone to violate me in that way. Although he still did very harmful things to me, because I was a little girl seeing him abuse my mother, and I remember that shit as clear as fucking day. When I talked to my brother about it, my brother acts like it was not that bad. No, he used to beat the shit out of mommy, and I remember it. Very, very well. And I also let my father know that whenever he's around, and my father is still, right now he's trying to, pay his debt, as a father, and wanting to rekindle a relationship with me. I do let him know that I remember how he used to whip my mother ass. I don't let him. My father has to be very, very brave when he comes around me, because he knows that I'm going to tell him all the things that he did wrong, as they come up in my mind. And, he has to sit in that every time he sees me. And his want to earn a pardon from me, right? His want to get a pardon from me, makes him brave enough to sit in that. But what I'm saying, what I was getting to was the fact that black men know that this is happening, right? They know about this 60 to 80% sexual assault rate with black girls and most likely black children in general. And they don't give a fuck. They walking out on you. They don't give a fuck and they walking out on you. So, unfortunately, I'm going to tell you as a single mom who chose to keep the kids, right? What my mother told me. Whether that guy that walked out on you decides to be your children's father or not, you have to be their mother. You have to do what's best for your children. And what's going to be best for them is if he walks out and he decides that, he does not want to stick around and raise your children with you. And, he's out the door. He goes to get milk and never come back. Then you cannot date. Sorry. You cannot date in Blackistan. You just cannot. And I know that is a huge advice for you to take. I tried to give it to one of my dearest friends. Because I just knew that she had too many men running in and out of her life, and that one of those men or all of those men would be violating her children. And they did. And when I told her as her children were being violated, I was telling her, you have got to stop dating. And she looked me right dead in my face. Now, her children have been violated. Her children have been fucked up. Her children have been scarred by this kind of running in and out that she had with her children. With these men. And she looked me right dead in my face. She said, if you think I'm not going to date for these children, you crazy. And I know you listening to this and you like, Preem, you fucking crazy. If you think that I'm going to be single for these fucking kids, then you nuts. But to the women who are here who can listen, I'm telling you, do not do it. Do not date. You cannot date in Blackistan and rear decent children. And let me tell you another thing. When I look back on being raised by my mother and my father's abuse, I have decided that it would have been better for her to just be a crone and be on her own and be siren than to even have him there. If my mother could not date, right? She wanted a man around and she needed a man around. And my father wasn't going to let anybody be around. Then she should have just been single. Because having him around and seeing the abuse that he inflicted on her caused a great deal of trauma for me and my brother. She could have decided to be single and to just raise her children. And that would have been the best thing for her to do. That was my mother. She be a goddess and all. She be my goddess and all, right? She gave me life. And I love her dearly and deeply, and I honor her and I am grateful for her. But she made mistakes as a mother, that I can admit. And one of those mistakes was the fact that she wanted to date, that she needed to date, that she wanted to, not even that she wanted to date, that she needed a man, because we didn't have many men running in and out of our lives, right? Because my father was not having it, right? Because he was so fucking crazy and so fucking selfish that he wouldn't allow it, right? So she would link back up with him, and my mother and father was married, mind you. So she would link back up with him, but seeing the abuse and how he treated her and how he dragged her through the mud as far as her womanhood, and after he stopped physically abusing her, he was still a philanderer, right? He still did a lot of cheating. He was an infidel, right? And he did a lot of cheating, and it tore my mother up. It tore her up. But she really could have just had one heartbreak and just let him go and raise her children, took her children and gone. As a matter of fact, I tell my brother to this day that had my mother, what would have been best for her as a woman, she really could have just dropped us off at his house. My father would have stepped up. I know it. I know 100% my father would have, we would have been no worse off had she just dropped us off with him. Right? And for her womanhood to save herself as a woman, that would have been the best thing that she would have done for herself. But my mother chose to mother. And in choosing a mother, she should have chose to stay single. And most of you listening here who have children, dating will destroy your children. In Blackistan, there are not going to be any decent men who are going to be decent enough to step up and raise. They don't like other people's children. Look, in my blog, and I say it all the time, and to my friends, let me tell you something that black men don't like. They don't like three things. Three things black men don't like. They don't like wives. They do not like children. They do not like families. Let that hit your soul. Let me say it again. Black men do not like wives. Right? They are not kind to wives. They are not nice to wives. They are not sweet to their wives if they have a wife. Right? They do not like children. They do not raise children. They run out on their children. They leave their children for dead. They do not like children. And they do not like families. They do not like family units. They do not make any sacrifices as men for family units. They don't like families. They don't like families. They don't like children. And they do not like wives. So, I don't know what makes you think, as a black woman, a single black woman with children, that he's going to come into your life and rescue you and love your children as his own. And I'm not saying this from a cold place as as the manosphere says it, right? As if you don't deserve it, or as if it's not something that you want as a woman. I'm telling you, as a woman who knows how sexually degenerate these males are, right? As a collective, how harmful they are to you as a woman and how it will affect your children. I have friends right now with teenage sons, right? Now he getting into the age of hate, right? Who have been dogged out by men their sons' whole lives. They've been watching the mothers get dogged out. And those sons are growing up into their 16, 17, and they are getting very fucking hateful. And they are throwing up those men in their mother's faces. So if you want to raise your son, at least not invite some another reason for him to hate you. Well, as Mad says, Miss Archduchess, they're gonna hate you anyway. They gonna hate you anyway. It's no way that they not gonna hate you. They gonna hate your ass. They gonna hate your ass. I said they gonna hate your ass. She did a whole line on one of her shows where she listed all the reasons he gonna hate her. You take you send him to public school, he gonna hate you. You send him to private school, he gonna hate you. You put him in sports, he gonna hate you. You put him in a reading club, he gonna hate you. You have him be a mathematician, he gonna hate you. You send him to college, he gonna hate you. You send him to the army, he gonna hate you. He end up in the streets, he gonna hate you. He gonna hate your ass. He gonna hate your ass. But while you're raising him, at least give him a little less vitriol. Okay? And as far as your daughters are concerned, if you only have daughters, I mean, for me and my daughter, it's been a pleasure. I mean, but besides the being poor, because you guys know I had my daughter very, very young. So besides the climbing out of poverty, with a baby on my hip, I didn't get out of poverty until she was 14 years old. But it was very pleasurable, just me and her. I didn't have to worry about no man violating her, nobody sneaking into her bedroom, no one looking at her. She started to blossom and started to bloom into a woman. No, no one being harmful towards her. So once she got about 16 years old, I did begin to date, and that was, and it was the worst decision of my life. To this day, I let her know that was the worst decision of rearing you. And I apologized to her for it. I let her know that I'm deeply apologetic for making that decision. It was a bad decision as a mother, and it affected. It didn't really affect her directly, but she witnessed a man treat me not as well as he should have, and I could have saved those 2 years, and I could have saved that lesson of trying to unteach something that I had done, right? Trying to tell her that she was better when I could have just showed her by not dating. I could have just showed her by not dating. I could have let her go and get her own dating experience when she got old enough to date, versus allowing her to see me settle for something that was not the best situation for me as a woman. As far as him being a good guy to me, and I had the same sense enough that to not bring somebody into her life that will harm her, right? I did have that much sense to be able to sense sexual deviance in him, and that was one of the ways that I vetted him, and that I was very strict about him not being a sexual deviant, or him not being able to look at my 16 and my 17-year-old daughter as she was growing into a woman in a way that a man looks at a woman and then violate her as if she was a woman, or as if not as if she was a woman, because no woman should be violated, but to not look at her as if she was a woman and try to pursue her as if she was a woman. And that part I vetted very well, and he did not. But as far as treating me as a woman that he was supposed to love, treats as far as him treating me well, right? He didn't, and I am very apologetic to my daughter for that, for putting her through that, and I regret it. It's one of the biggest regrets that I have in motherhood. It's one of my biggest regrets. And I'm telling you, if you begin to date in Blackistan, it will be one of yours too. And he was an educated lane, right? He wasn't a Pookie or Ray Ray. He was an educated lane. He was educated. He was clean cut, and he was intelligent, and he came from a nice, decent family, a midway, wealthy family, as a matter of fact, and he was a stone cold piece of shit. Stone cold piece of shit. And and my daughter watched me go through that relationship, for years, and it's a great regret in my mothering. I wish it never happened, but it did, and I let her know that I'm apologetic for it. So, I think I had wrote notes for that blog because I wanted the commentary for it to be precise and short and to the point, and I did not want to go off topic. So yeah, single mothers do not date in Blackistan. I'm not saying that you cannot date outside of Blackistan, but I know that all of my subscribers here are not completely and totally divested. You are some of you are trying to divest, and some of you just happen to stumble across my page just because you're a Cronin woman and you heard that call. And I'm telling you, don't date. It's too detrimental and too harmful to your children. I think my last words on that blog was, I'll read it. My last words on that blog was, single mothering is a great sacrifice, and if you really want to mother and do it well, do not date. Let me go back. I said, I'll read it. When I tell you that I mothered well and it was to my detriment, I mean it. I don't know if not dating was to my detriment though. In my subconscious mind, which is where the grandmother resides, I knew better than to risk my daughter's innocence for my own validation from dating. That is all dating during those times would have offered. That is all the sex offered was fake validation. And as I matured, I realized I didn't need it. I could have been celibate during that time as well. So I mentioned that, I had some experiences with males in the wee hours. I'm telling you, I was a young woman. And the truth of the matter is, he could slide through about between the hours of 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. When it was time for my daughter to get up for school and it was time for me to get to work, he had to be out of my house. But I was a much younger woman back then, and I would not advise you to do that now. That was also a foolish decision on my part. Yeah, so anyway, this is circling back to the moment alone that Black women need to take. Use the time alone to properly rear your children. You had them and you are choosing to keep them, so you must raise them. Single mothering is a great sacrifice, and if you really want to mother and do it well, do not date. And that is the close of my commentary for that last blog. I hope that this finds you well. Happy Sunday. I hope you guys enjoy your Sunday. That's all. Love you. Talk to you next time.